Your coins, crow your coins. You gotta crow your coins. We are live, ladies and gentlemen. It is 1:19 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I just got my hair did. Just trying to be pretty. Uh, yeah, I just got back from getting my hair cut finally because I haven't had a haircut since before the hurricane. And yeah, there's some interesting stuff going on today, and some news and things that I thought I'd share because, quite frankly, I feel some of the stuff that's coming out is quite nonsensical. And I will ask you right up front. I want you guys to let me know your comments below, not in the super chat, but below, because I'm going to read these all later. I have a laundry list of predictions the world over that I want to do a video on, but it would have to be a scripted video because there's no way I'd get through it properly by just like being off the cuff. It's a list that I have to write out and then write it out in story form. Would you be interested in a video like this? How prophetic do you think I truly am? How in tune with the world do you think I may be? And how effective do you think it would be to put out a video like that? Because there's so much stuff that I'm seeing, and while I can't necessarily go into every detail the way I'd like to here, I feel like if I put out a list of predictions for between now and maybe 2030, I think it'll paint a picture of how I believe the world is changing, where we're going to end up, and how society as a whole is likely to change with it, and what I see happening between now and then across all fronts. And it's a video that I really want to do, but I want to make sure that the people will support it. If you guys would support it, will you support it with engagement? Will there be lots of likes, even if you may not necessarily agree, but if it makes you think? And that's all I can really ask. And when I do any kind of content, the idea isn't necessarily to tell you what to do or not do, but to make you think and to basically, I get a lot of comments often that say, wow, Crow, you really nailed what I've already been thinking, but you really added a new twist I didn't consider. That's brilliant. That's what I love. I love to just get people thinking about alternative possibilities and maybe a different way of looking at similar situations. We may all have the same gut feeling, but ultimately, I like to put a spin on things. Well, I don't like to. It's just kind of how things roll, how things happen. So anyway, let's go ahead and look at some stuff here real quick. This is murderofcrows.io. If you don't hold one, they're fun. It's not a get rich quick thing at all. It's just a fun thing. If you like the crows and you want to be a part of the crow community, I haven't even checked the metrics because, quite frankly, we're doing a lot of stuff whether we hit the milestones or not. We're just kind of making them happen as they're possible. I love my birds. I love my murder of crows. I love my NFTs, and I will say that the sales of these have been helping me fund some of the other projects that that ultimately I'm using these NFTs to unlock access to, such as Soblox, such as the tactical game that I have built. I mean, I've been paying and helping my developers with funds from my Murder of Crows NFT. So it's basically just a fun thing. I'm not telling anybody you're going to buy these today and get rich tomorrow. They may never be worth anything at all. So don't ever buy these expecting them to be like a Bored Ape. Okay. It's not the goal. It's not the intent. I will say that so far, nobody has solved the Twisted Times treasure chest hunt. I think people have been getting really stumped because the first half I made fairly easy to get your mind working. And then the second half is where things get difficult. And I think that's what's really stumping people. And the last one, I literally did like every little element of that myself to make it challenging but solvable. And, people have already opened it, even though they haven't solved some of the ones before it. And they're completely clueless. And I'm like, perfect. That'll give you some time. But anyway, yeah, check out murderofcrows.io and grab a couple if you don't mind, because it does support a lot of what I'm doing right now. But again, you're not going to get rich buying these. Okay, I just want to make that abundantly clear. This is not a get rich quick like investment. This is all for fun. Whatever happens, happens. Anything is possible, but that's not why I'm selling them. Bitcoin. I almost said BitQuick. Bitcoin. Currently on a weekly chart. Again, this isn't none of this chart stuff that I'm doing is actual TA. I plan on starting that Monday, but I am just kind of going over things generally speaking right now. But yeah, we're obviously sideways still on a weekly chart. Okay, and Bitcoin on a daily. I mean, we're at some point we're going to break out of this pennant or this kind of bearish triangle here, and quite frankly, I think we're going to come down, and we may just work this all the way down into November. But typically, from what I've seen in a lot of these formations, we've in a bear market we break down, and right about now is when we typically break down. But again, I don't really see a lot of that stuff happening. If we get a significant rise up in the traditional stock market, then we may very well break down in Bitcoin because people are going to be taking their prices, putting them in stocks. I think a lot of the smart money is doing that right now because they expect some stock market pumps prior to this election, and I've obviously done some videos on that. This is Ethereum on a 4-hour chart. We've already bounced off of the bottom of the Bollinger Band and picked back up, and now we're working our way back down. Again, Bitcoin looks like it's primed for a breakdown. Ethereum could be primed for a breakdown from here as well. And of course, that's easy to say in a bear market. But, it's like, oh, it's going to go lower. It's like, wow, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure a lot of that out. Cardano, I mean, it's just been spilling over. I mean, it has been spilling over, which is going to lead me to some of the articles and some of the commentary that I'm going to be doing here in a few minutes. I have no fear. If anything, I have. I'm grateful for this because I'm telling you, man, if I can accumulate somewhere in the 20-cent range over the next several months, maybe the next 3 months or 4 months or so, even if it were to go lower, I am super pumped. Keep in mind, the bottom for ADA in the last bear cycle was 2 cents. And I know a great number of new millionaires hit the world who watch my videos regularly when I had explained how I was accumulating at 2 cents. Because I still get those messages, even in this bear market where sentiment is down and everything. And there's a lot that I'm going to cover today about Cardano because there's a lot of, there's some things I'm going to point out. So that's it for the charts. Now let's get into XRP a little bit because I found this a little interesting. Smitty says XRP might hit 5 digits. 2 major market players to support Ripple in the SEC case. Let's take a look at this real quick. Number one is XRP might hit 5 digits. U.S. record producer Smitty makes a stunning prediction. U.S. record producer Eric Finrod, also known as Smitty. I used to manage a band, and the lead singer, his name was Smitty. We called him Smitty. Among professional musicians, has recently taken to Twitter to share a prediction on the XRP price. According to him, the Ripple affiliated token will not only hit $1,000, but will also reach 5 digits and then go higher. Now, Smitty stated that XRP will soon be adopted by the entire world, adding that he pays royalties to musicians he collaborates with using XRP and accepts payments in this cryptocurrency for mixing, mastering, producing, and marketing. The idea of XRP skyrocketing in the future is also supported by David Gokhstein. I have no idea. He claims that if Ripple wins in its legal battle against the SEC, XRP will soar along with the entire crypto market. Now, this is a big, bold statement, obviously, by somebody who holds and supports XRP and uses it for a lot of things. So you would expect somebody to want to come out with something like this and maybe use their platform to try and create a pump. However, there's a little more to it. Ripple to get more support from major new market players in the SEC case. As shared by @CryptoLawUS, 2 more big market players, Philip Goldstein, co-creator of Bulldog Investors Private Fund, and ICANN, Investors Choice Advocates Network, decided to support Ripple in its case against the SEC. Both Goldstein and ICANN intend to file an amicus brief to the court representing the interests of market participants generally and in the particular case of Ripple and the SEC. By submitting the brief, the parties are urging the court to grant the motion of the defendants for summary judgment. The goal of the new amicus brief is to emphasize exactly why the efforts undertaken by the SEC to gain control over cryptocurrencies and other digital assets is an impermissible and unauthorized exercise of regulatory power. So there's obviously stuff brewing, and it has been brewing now for a couple of years. And quite frankly, I see a future for XRP because obviously the technology that XRP utilizes to maintain itself is already being widely adopted from what I've seen by governments and different things. So I think that, like I've said many times before, I think that XRP in this law case is more of an exploratory kind of case. I don't necessarily know that the SEC is going after them because they want to hurt them in that sense. I something tells me they're doing this because they're trying to lay down a lot of legal precedents associated with the specific technology that XRP is born from, as it relates to the future of other maybe CBDC tokens or other things that may in fact also be using that. So that's just what I think, and I'm not 100% sure. Now, this is something that I got a chuckle out of, and I think is going to be very easy to debunk, but I thought I'd share it. Cardano and Solana could become egregious failures like EOS, says analyst. I saw this headline and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. After an unforgettable couple of months, independent market analyst Don Alt believes on fire Cardano, Solana, Uniswap, and others may end up seeing the same fate as Litecoin, EOS, and Bitcoin Cash, which went from dominant market leaders in the crypto market to what they are today. So this whole thing basically goes into how Litecoin basically rose to fame and popularity with significant uptrends in price action, only to basically falter in the last market peak, right? And not that much came of Litecoin. And EOS obviously getting $4.1 billion. I know Mike Novogratz was a big proponent of EOS, and there are a lot of other big players that were into it, but it kind of ho-hummed. It didn't do much. It hasn't done anything. It's almost faded away like a fart in the wind, right? So what I find funny is that this analyst has somehow lumped in ADA with Solana to be a potential doom and gloom situation in future. So let me point this out for anybody that may not be out there or may be out there who's like just catching me for the first time. Maybe you're not familiar with my doctrine, if you will, my sentiment overall, and then we're going to get into some other things because I want to get into some metrics. But let me just say this. Litecoin ultimately was a fork of Bitcoin. And it was a fork of Bitcoin to basically try and do a few extra things that Bitcoin doesn't do. And while it rose in popularity for a little while because of the idea behind it, I think the general use case for Bitcoin never changed. Store of value. And for a lot of people in those markets, people were utilizing Bitcoin and in some cases Ethereum as fiat on ramps before they put that to work in other whether it was ICOs or other blockchain projects, right? Now, EOS, I really don't even understand what happened with EOS. I think that its valuation and its basically vacuum cleaner-esque method of sucking up billions of dollars in capital to achieve ultimately nothing blows my mind. Like, where is the money? Like, what's happening? What has been the outcome of EOS outside of basically crickets? And the thing of it is, and there's one significant difference between all of these projects mentioned and Cardano, and I want to make this abundantly clear. You cannot measure Cardano the way you would measure any of these other projects. Number one, many of them are just forks. Okay, a couple of them are just forks. Solana is losing faith because it shuts down all the time. In my opinion, Solana's a shit show. It's like, what significant applications would be built utilizing Solana outside of short burst speculative projects that ultimately mean nothing, or NFTs looking to capitalize on lower transaction fees? And I think to myself, Solana it's venture owned to a large degree, it's team owned to a large degree, and they obviously, especially as the price rises, they have the means of engaging in a myriad of marketing applications, marketing efforts to try and pump up that FOMO, and they've been really successful at that for a while now. That project, to me, I feel could ultimately go to the wayside by the peak of the next bull market, or even the beginning of the next bull market, potentially around 2024. Because what is it really good for? And what applications that mean anything of substance would be built on a platform that ultimately can go down at any moment? I mean, Solana is, and this may sound really bad, but to me, Solana is like the Puerto Rico of crypto. And for anybody that lives in Puerto Rico or has been to Puerto Rico, the power could go out at any moment, and you never really know why or when, and you never know when it's coming back. Solana is the Puerto Rico of crypto. Sorry, but that's just the way I see it. And when it comes to real applications and it comes to real development, you're trying to compare Solana to Cardano. There is no comparison whatsoever. You're talking about multiple significant teams full of brilliant people, all developing different aspects of this blockchain that is still, in my opinion, unfinished. It's usable. People are using it for NFTs. I think it's already broken like the third or fourth rank in market capitalization for the NFT market, and it's still just getting started. Cardano is still a baby. So you're trying to compare a layer one blockchain designed primarily with security and scalability and all of these different things in mind that far outweigh anything you're going to see on a Solana or even an EOS. Now, the other side to that is we're talking about crypto projects that have launched in the past, completed, basically put out a layer one blockchain or whatever, and basically said, okay, we're ultimately done, right? With minor, differences here and there, maybe little upgrades or little benefits or perks. But you're talking about a system of blockchains that ultimately were just kind of thrown out there to be competitive in a new market, as so many things were being resolved and figured out and so forth. Whereas Cardano has definitely taken that slow grow approach, saying, listen, we're going to grow with the market demand and the market intent and the market's interest, the types of applications that are to be built utilizing Cardano, the kind of use cases. We want to empower the types of use cases that are needed in this type of space, which is why they're using Africa and different ecosystems in different parts of the world to build some of these fundamental means of doing business and operating and so forth. And they've been testing these use cases with counterfeiting, anti-counterfeiting, all sorts of different things, right? And they're doing these things in little small batches here and there to figure out, okay, this is what we need to do to further this blockchain to be more applicable to the use cases that we see it being most useful. Where there's a lot of these other blockchains, just they build a blockchain, they throw out a bunch of, terminology, they generate a bunch of revenue up front, and then they fade to the wayside because these teams are often smaller groups of people. They get their cash, they get their money basically up front, and then from there it's like, how long is this interesting? And then they start to fade away on their yachts in the Caymans, and everything else is just kind of left to see, well, what we built is built, it's done, it's out there, the world will either use it or they won't. Whereas with Cardano, you've got so many different arms. You have a significant community that is only going to grow as we further into this next bull market. And there's just so many different reasons why this is an entirely different animal altogether. Now, if we want to look at some of the numbers, okay, we can look at some of these numbers here. This is ADA, which is just showing basically some of the on-chain metrics of what's going on. Obviously, the blocks are pretty consistent. This is output, not necessarily volume, but I mean, the numbers are significant. Even down here, even as it's kind of wind down in the bear market cycle, the numbers are still astronomical, okay, in terms of output. Excuse me, average transaction fees. It looks basically, it's around 0.33 ADA as a transaction fee, which isn't too bad, really. Now, it is bad if Cardano gets to $5, $6, and you're paying a couple bucks for every transaction, especially when, and this is one of the issues that we've been looking at with Soblocks, the social media platform. We're building a governance application for it now. We're likely going to end up launching like a governance NFT, which will empower people to make decisions and so forth. And we're working on that. My developer and I have been talking about it back and forth. It'll provide some extra funding for the things that we're trying to build now, prior to like a Project Catalyst submission, and basically kind of it's just a way for the public who says, yeah, I want to be a part of a blockchain based social media platform. You know, we're basically going to say, okay, this is how we're going to build it. We're going to release kind of a, not necessarily a one sheet, but you know, a summary of all the development that we're looking to do and how we want this platform to operate, which is unlike anything out there, literally unlike anything out there. And to me, I'm like writing a lot of this stuff up, and I'm like, this is the future. Let's just say the cream has to rise to the top or it's going to go away, right? So spam, all that garbage, it's just going to go away because there's not going to be any community support for it. But I'll just leave that little tidbit. But that's coming. But the one thing is the transaction fees. The transaction fees can be pretty high if you're looking to ultimately commit a post or an article or something that you post on the site to the blockchain. So we're working on ways to navigate that and to try and bring that down. And we have several ideas on how we're going to do that. But the transaction fees have been basically, you know, look at this. I mean, the volume and transaction fees is solid. And we can look at this. This is monthly on-chain stats. This is from September of 2022. Everything's a green arrow. Okay. Number of transactions up 4.2%. Delegated wallets up 1.22 million. That's up 3.40%. Number of policies is up. Plutus scripts, basically people building applications, that's up 3,380. This is all in the month of September, folks. Okay. Simple transactions, metadata without smart contracts. The number of smart contracts, 14% of it, smart contracts without metadata, smart contracts with metadata. I mean, the numbers are right there. Cardano is growing, and it's growing consistently, even at where we're at in this bear market, where so many other projects are dwindling to nothing because the use cases aren't there. The people are not going to build applications on a blockchain that they don't feel confident in, not just confident that's going to stay up 24/7 without error, but you know, centralized blockchains, the only real use case, in my opinion, for a centralized ledger or a centralized blockchain is governmental use. That's pretty much it, because decentralization is for the people. Decentralized applications are for the people. It's to protect from a variety of different intrusive potential efforts by people on the outside. That's what decentralized is about, amongst, you know, the decentral nature of storing data and things of that nature. So centralized applications are primarily going to be for governmental use, which is why things like XRP are so popular in what I believe to be government countries all over the place, which is why this SEC case has even begun to begin with. Now, if we're looking at staking pools, we have 2,969 active staking pools. Okay. That's great. We're still around 3,000 staking pools. Total staked $8.7 billion. 73.86% is being staked in Cardano right now. And that is also, like, this is a pro and a con. And I'll explain this because I've talked about this in the past, because people don't understand, well, with so much staked, why is Cardano's price continuing to go down? Because the long-term holders and the long-term believers are holding it and averaging down, as the non-believers and the speculators who either they just bought it because somebody told them, they don't really understand what's being built, they don't understand the use cases, they don't really know anything about Cardano other than it's a top 5 list of their neighbor, and they bought it and they're watching it go down, and then the world around us is basically seemingly closing in, right? There's so much happening in the world and people are scared and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm being told to cut expenses. I'm being told to cut this, cut that. What do I do? Well, I bought some of this Cardano a while back and it just seems to be losing value every day. I better get rid of it. And so they're dumping it. And when they do, they're selling it to either people that are accumulating, right, and staking it, as we see, because the numbers are right freaking here. Total number of staked addresses, 1.2 million. And because of the nature of how the market works, if the majority of your supply is locked up by choice, it's not locked up. I mean, people can go and sell and trade and do whatever they want, even with their delegated ADA, right? You're not locked in for any period of time. It's just from epoch to epoch. That's really all it is. So, but the amount that's on exchanges that's being traded, the demand isn't necessarily there because we're in a bear market cycle. The people that believe in it are already holding it and staking it. They're generating a passive yield between 4 and 5%, give or take. That changes quite frequently. And then so the market price is dictated by ultimately the people that are trying to sell it right now because they're afraid of what's coming, whether it's recession or depression or wars or whatever. So that's why. But the thing of it is that when the market turns around, that's where things change. Because when the market turns around, that's going to be where we see the exact opposite happen, where the few that's available on the exchanges, the supply becomes much less than the demand. Because as Cardano continues to grow faith in the newcomers to the space, the people that don't necessarily know much or they don't understand it, and they continue educating themselves, that's when the price really starts to turn around. And I believe that is when we start moving up quickly in the market capitalization. And we start moving from 5 or 6 to 4 or 3 or 2 even. And that's what I ultimately think is going to happen. But, I'm also not saying, listen, I'm not a financial advisor, right? I could be just some idiot on YouTube's trying to establish FOMO for my own bags, as some people like to say in comments. The Solana holders out there that like to watch me and troll me. I think it's funny, but ultimately anything could happen, right? I mean, Cardano could come all the way back down to 5 cents. Okay, I don't see that happening, but it could. Anything could happen. But when I'm looking at all of these different blockchains out there and their specific niches and their different use cases and things, I just think that, I actually happen to like what I'm seeing with Cardano because I feel like it's like, just like I said in the last bear market, I'm like, it's like a rubber band. And that rubber band is being pulled back until we start to launch. And once we let go of that thing, it's going to go in the complete opposite direction to where it's been going now. This is my own personal stake pool. If you are a Cardano holder, especially if you got, let me tell you, I'm gonna bust some heads. Okay, I'm gonna bust some heads real quick. If you are into Cardano because you watch my videos and you are loving where you're at and you're loving what's going on, you better be delegating that to my stake pool. You better, because I'm gonna find you and I'm gonna leg kick the shit out of you. No, I'm just kidding. I would never do that. My wife has prohibited me from leg kicking people anymore because it's never pretty. But this is my stake pool. And you can see even right now, I'm at 17.6 million ADA in live stake on my staking pool. We did have a couple of months where we were struggling with the upgrade. And there were a couple months, I think these two, or not even months, these 2 epochs. And boy, people were letting me know on Twitter, hey, you got to upgrade. You got to upgrade to Vassal and the node and this and that. So we had a couple of epochs where we did nothing, but we're back in action. I mean, we're block producing. Now we're still early on this one, but we're, 15 blocks, 17 blocks, 17, 14. So we do pretty good. And we've had over 5.5 billion ADA over the course of the lifetime of the node delegated, and people come and go, which is totally cool. Sometimes people want to go and they want to take advantage of other, like when the Sunday swap thing came out and they're like, stake to our node, you're going to get Sunday swap tokens and this and that. I was never interested in that because I'm like, I'd rather have Cardano above all else. But how do you do a stake pool? I'll get to that when I get to the comments because it's not easy. It really isn't. Running a Cardano node is not easy. I have a full stack developer that handles it all for me. And sometimes he even gets flustered because he's like, this doesn't make much sense. And he has to go to some of the node operator support groups and try to figure out what people are doing as work throughs. So it's not easy. It's not something you could do, I think, as a layman's. I don't think I could do it. And I'm not even a layman. I mean, I'm fairly tech savvy. So yeah, so that's my node. And I mean, it's doing fine. I mean, and I'm happy with it. I'd like to see it. At one point, this was at like 60 million ADA staked. And I would love to see that happen again. But I think when we opened that spillover node, it kind of hurt because we were really getting to like 90%. And I was like, we were going brown and it was causing problems. And then like a bunch of people started jumping out. And I'm like, all right. But if you hold ADA, you better be staking